I'm Sue-Ann Ward. I'm a priest at Grace Anglican Church in Waterdown. We are experiencing an unusual time, so I'm going to try a different way of moving forward with Sunday messages. Ever since it was determined that we could not gather together in person for worship services, our bishop, Susan Bell, has been leading us in morning prayer online each Sunday at 10 a.m. Bishop Susan offers us inspiring messages based on the lectionary Bible readings appointed for each Sunday of the church year. So instead of offering a different message on the same passages of Scripture, I've decided to share a series of homilies on specific topics and themes. Beginning today, we will be exploring the composition and the contents of this holy library. We will dip into how the book that we call the Bible was put together, why not all Bibles are the same, and how we can approach reading various books of the Bible. We will also look at the books that make up the Apocrypha, books that are not included in most Protestant Bibles. Today, I'm going to provide just a general introduction. So the library of books that have been bound together and called the Bible have something for every reader. They include adventure, war stories, poetry, drama, tragedy, philosophy, biography, prophecy, proverbs, romance, myth, history, and even correspondence. There are passages that inform, debate, comfort, encourage, amuse, irritate, enchant, and challenge. At their heart, the books of the Bible reflect the complicated relationship that God has with humanity and the belief that God is involved in human history. Today, the Bible is printed as one book, but centuries ago, the individual books of the Bible were circulated separately on scrolls or codices. When these separate books have been gathered together by different people at different times, the result has been that not all Bibles have contained the same set of books in the same order. While not all Bibles are exactly the same, what they all have in common is that they are collections of the books that Jewish and Christian communities around the world have historically accepted as being uniquely authoritative. The Jewish Bible today is known as the Tanakh. It contains the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the Nevi'im, the books of the prophets, and the Ketuvim, other sacred writings. The Christian Bible contains the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I'd like to note that the term Old Testament is offensive to many of our Jewish friends because it implies that Judaism has been replaced by Christianity and that the New Testament is superior to the Old Testament. I don't believe that. The term Hebrew Scriptures is more appropriate, but for clarity today, when referring to the Christian Bibles, I will use Old Testament and New Testament to distinguish the two sections. Obviously, the biggest difference between the Jewish Tanakh and the Christian Bible are the books of the New Testament. Most Christian traditions today agree that the New Testament contains 27 books. But various Christian traditions, Protestant, Roman Catholic, and Orthodox, disagree upon how many books should be included in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures. The Protestant Old Testament matches the Jewish Tanakh in content, but some of the books are organized differently. The Roman Catholic Old Testament matches the Protestant Bible in organization, but it contains more books. And Eastern Orthodox Christians have even more books in their Old Testaments. So just for fun, I'm going to give you a multiple choice quiz on the Bible. Which of the following books is not contained in any Bible? A. Tobit, B, Susanna, C, Bell and the Dragon, or D, 2nd James? Give you a minute to think about it. Well, the correct answer is D, 2nd James. Yes, Bell and the Dragon is a book of the Bible. At least most Christians would say it was. Why do different Christian traditions agree on the books of the New Testament, but disagree about the part of the Bible that they share with Judaism? The answer really comes down to timing. So in order to be included in the Bible, the various books went through 3 basic stages. First, the book was composed. Passages were penned and oral traditions were written down. Second, the book was circulated and used. Individual books were often collected together with other related books or included on the same scrolls. Third, the book was confirmed as part of the closed canon. So I just use the word canon, and when I speak of a canon, I am not talking about artillery. I'm referring to a grouping of books that a religious community has deemed to be authoritative. The canon of Scripture consists of the writings that are central to a religious group's faith community. Once a canon is established, it's generally then closed. Books cannot be added or removed from the canon. Within Christianity, the canon usually refers to the religious texts that a community has approved for reading during liturgy. For the New Testament canon of Scripture, this process took place between the 1st and 4th centuries. The 4 Gospels and the letters written by Paul were used widely as collections from the 2nd century onward. Different communities used various other books for centuries longer. Official agreement was established at a series of councils in the 4th century, and the canon of Scripture was then considered to be closed. The overall process that produced the Jewish Tanakh was similar, but the timing was different. It started earlier and it finished later. The Torah, the first 5 books, and the prophets were well-established collections by the 2nd century before the Christian era. Different Jewish communities used various other books for a few centuries longer. During this period, Judaism was really quite diverse. In the 1st century CE, Christianity was born as a variety of Judaism. After the Romans destroyed the Jewish temple in Jerusalem in the year 70, some varieties of Judaism died out, and Christianity gradually became a separate movement. Christians, in addition to creating their own sacred books, continued to use the sacred books that were used in the Jewish synagogues. In the 4th century, when Christians felt the need to define exactly which books should be used during liturgical services, some books were included in the Christian canon that were later ruled out when the Jewish canon was finalized. That is why, up until the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century, there were more books in every Christian Old Testament than in the Jewish Tanakh. Well, we are going to take a closer look at the Tanakh next week. People of faith believe that Scripture is important because in a whole variety of ways, from the very literal to the mystical, through these human words that have been shared for millennia, God speaks to God's people. So I'd like to close today with 3 short passages of Scripture that emphasize the importance of Holy Scripture. In Psalm 119, the psalmist sings to God, "Your word," Scripture, "is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." In the 4th chapter of Proverbs, God provides this encouragement. My child, be attentive to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and healing to all flesh. And the prophet Isaiah reminds God's people, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. Thanks be to God.